in the state that the club is in, for the complaints about, I understand the idea of prestige, that the idea that Martin Braithwaite and Luuk de Jong are on FC Barcelona leading that line, or at least are two of the 5 players in that forward attack, let's say, because I think the central idea now is that if Fati, if Memphis, and if Dembele are healthy, that is your front 3. We'll see how Demir does. And then you also have Braithwaite and de Jong. So thinking of them on the depth chart in that way, and you don't know where Coutinho will fit in the left wing either. So viewing it in that lens, that's fine with that's your whatever 7, but just considering that they're not going to hopefully be in that best 11 or whatever it is, you know what I mean? The Gala 11, if everyone were to hypothetically be healthy in this world. So if I'm saying that Luuk de Jong was brought in to be an upgrade on Ray Minaj instead of to have to replace Messi plus Griezmann, or I mean, Messi and Griezmann, it was all financial. That shows you the state that Barcelona is in at the moment financially. And Luuk de Jong is merely just a talent upgrade on Ray Minaj because that's what the club could afford. So trying to view Luuk de Jong through that lens, I think is a lot healthier, at least, than to do it and assume that he's going to be, I mean, even the player that he was for PSV at 112 goals and 204 appearances for PSV alongside Memphis, ironically enough, 19 and 94 for Sevilla. And the worrying ones is earlier in his career, 0 in 12 appearances for Newcastle. And obviously English media controls everything. So, you know, his time at Newcastle, those 12 matches is going to define his whole career. And then in Borussia Mönchengladbach, when he was a young player, it was 8 and 45 goals. But I think the more recent stat here is he has had 10 goals in his last 70 appearances for Sevilla, but he started this year as 3rd on that depth chart. Does that worry you at all that they're getting a player? I mean, when Martin Braithwaite was picked from Leganés, at least he was their starting number 9. Are you worried that getting Luuk de Jong as 3rd on the Sevilla depth chart is, I mean, what's the point?
I think there's a really big problem here. And that is whenever I see Luuk de Jong's face, I just want to vomit.
It sounds like a you problem.
Yeah. No, but
you should get that checked out. Ask a doctor.
Like, me problems are the biggest problem in the world, Dan. Like, you know, there's nothing worse than me problems. And yeah, so how I'm going to live with this, because I absolutely cannot stand the guy. Having said that, I would not want to have him as an opponent either, for exactly the same reason. I can't stand Luuk de Jong. Everything about him annoys me.
Well, you got to give it details, though. Playing wise, playing style. Give us details. What is it about his stuff with the Dutch national team which you support, or
annoying? His playing style is annoying. He goes out there with the purpose to annoy, and that is actually good about him, because, you know, it's very irritating to be annoyed when you play against somebody.
Yeah.
So he will constantly elbow you. You know, he'll constantly like make you uncomfortable. He's incredibly strong in the air. So that is also frustrating for defenders. I think it's hilarious how I think it was 2 seasons ago for Sevilla, he scored against Manchester United. He scored against Inter in the final. He scored against Atletico, and he scored against Madrid. If he does that for Barça, he's going to end his career a cult hero. You know, so there is like a small chance that this is going to work out well. And the other thing about it is we're not even paying his full wages.
Right.
It's a 1-season loan with no obligation whatsoever to continue with him. So I think a lot has been made in the past about, for example, Boateng, who came for 1 million, or
Jason Murillo was the same.
Jason Murillo, the Colombian guy from Valencia, who came. I never really understood the problem there, because it's you're not going to lose anything by putting this guy on the squad. In case it works, great. In case it doesn't, you're not stuck with the contract. You're rid of him after 1 season. I mean, that is not a problem for me. So even though I'm annoyed by Luuk de Jong, I don't think that, you know, he's the kind of quality player that we want at the club. Given the situation that we are in, and given that everything points towards this being 1 or 2 transition years, I don't mind. it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think you brought up a lot of good points, especially at the end. That I think for what he brings in terms of his playing style, it's a bit different as a traditional number 9. Ironically enough, Griezmann is gone, so we can't play off our traditional number 9, unfortunately. But Coutinho is returning, and Coutinho might play well off of him as he has with traditional number 9s in the past. Same thing with his partnership with Memphis. I don't want to overplay that, but that might be a good positive thing. And then just adding that different wrinkle, being an experienced striker next to Fati, taking a bit of that pressure. That way Fati doesn't have to be, we know that he isn't the mean guy, right? That's not his character. He's not that guy. Mm-hmm. He'll stand up for himself, but he's not gonna stir the pot like Luuk de Jong will and be a distraction while Fati is coming at you, right? So if you're being distracted by Luuk de Jong, but you always have to keep one eye on Ansu Fati, that's a good position for Fati to be in. So yeah, I mean, I don't think he's going to wow anybody at all. And I think the point with Kevin Prince Boateng, as compared to this, is that when Prince Boateng was brought in, it was when the club was still operating with that financial hubris under Bartomeu, when he kept saying everything is fine and all the books were secret. And it was that, Barcelona are way better than the level that Kevin Prince Boateng is at. And there was that belief. There was that, again, that hubris. But I think with everything the club is going through financially, Kool-Aids have been humbled in that way, that Barcelona, they shouldn't have a player of Kevin Prince Boateng or even a Luuk de Jong status. However, they need a Luuk de Jong at this moment because of the financial picture you're in. You don't lose Messi because you're okay, right? And it lets you know that they're in a bad spot at the moment. But to make 70 million euros, a positive 70 million euros, which is, I think, the best transfer window that the club has had in years and years and years, because they always wind up spending, plus 13 million in variables. The biggest thing, obviously, is getting off the wage bills. And you look at the transfer window as a total, you can go in whatever direction you want to hear. You could go Emerson here, you can go Griezmann if you want, but I think it all starts and ends with Messi. We will always remember, as much as it was a summer when they offloaded as much money as they could, Messi leaving for free, it dictates the whole conversation. And having to force him out is what we should understand this moment to be, right? It's a bad place to be, but as long as you get through the darkest times, and the only fear is that it is possible this team to succeed based on the expectations and the club still being in a very, very financially bleak state. So that is the optimistic part of that Memphis, even with the club with $0, as long as he's registered, he can still score goals. And Piqué is still around, and Fati is still under contract at the moment. Pedri is still under contract. So the team itself could still have good results, regardless of the very, very financially bleak situation. The only problem comes next summer, even when the club is forced to sell Pedri or De Jong or Fati. But for me to say that Messi's gone, that Griezmann was, that loan with the 40 million obligation to buy, that even Pjanic was able to get his wages for this summer, it seems, Levon, that with the great debt the club is in, they're going to at least, I don't know. I'm almost stuttering on the words to try to get this out, but this feels like the darkest hour, right? I know that these hours have all been darkest, but how is Messi leaving in this situation not the darkest hour, right? I mean, I don't know.
I mean, if you tell me that next summer we have to sell Frenkie de Jong or Pedri, then that is going to be darker than this, because that would be admitting that, hey, not only are we giving up on the present, we're giving up on the future.
Right.
So if that came to pass, that would be infinitely more painful to me. And thank God that we have a president who does not sell Frenkie de Jong to keep Messi for 2 more years. As painful as it is to lose Messi. I think the biggest question here that I have, and a lot of people don't even ask that question because they're just upset and they're convinced that they know the answer. The biggest question that I have is, would it have been possible to keep Messi? If so, at what cost? And my follow-up question to that would be, would keeping Messi really have meant that we would have guaranteed the extra income that people say that Messi generates to offset the cost? These are things that I simply cannot wrap my head around. Not only because I don't really have the information. The club does publish the financial numbers year by year, but that honestly most of us are not skilled enough at taking that information, understanding it, knowing what what the possibilities are going forward, and so on and so on. And I'll readily admit that we do not know this. We don't know if it were possible, or if it had been possible to keep Messi or not.
Yeah, and I look at it very cynically moving forward in terms of even the Emerson deal. To me, that one is much more telling even than the Griezmann deal or the Pjanic deal or any of the other ones, Alenya or Todibo or Junior Firpo or the free transfer of Miranda. So, I mean, there's a whole list of the players that left. And for
right, because there's hardly any benefit.
Right. At the start of this summer, Emerson was one of those rare examples where they wouldn't, that being Barcelona, would not have brought him in for 9 million if there was not expectation that he would be kept, or the expectation that this would happen, where a club like Tottenham would say, hey, 75 million with add-ons, that means you're going to pocket, and I've seen different numbers here, so we don't know the exact accounting, but it could be as low as 6 million euros have been pocketed by Barcelona for this deal, just after having to pay Real Betis 9 million, plus Betis taking a fraction of the 25 million with add-ons that Tottenham would is providing for this deal. So it could be as low as 6 million, but even 6 million for a player that, I mean, you're basically making a profit off him no matter what, right? There was no loss on that because of what they even initially had made an investment on. It's just having investment come to fruition, right? It's like in the US, for those United States fans, you know, if you ever have a CD, right, a certificate of deposit, like, I mean, those don't help you much. The rates there are like 3% or whatever, but having money in a CD and then taking that out for 5 years or 10 years, you still get something. Did it change your life? I mean, you could have used that money elsewhere. It could have gone farther, or as in if Emerson had played for Barca, he might have done better, as that 6 million might get you. But at the moment, Barcelona needs the 6 million, right? So it's like, I only bring that CD to fruition when I truly need that money. And then I take out, you know what I mean? And then that small benefit winds up being a small benefit, which is different than the Griezmann deal. But yeah, go on the Emerson.
No, you hit the nail on the head. The fact that they did it for so little money, where everybody thinks that, you know, the upside to keeping Emerson is a lot higher than selling him, because if you wait for 1 year, then you don't have to split part of that that fee with Betis. If you still decide to sell him, you might decide not to sell him, and so on and so on.